Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to share about how to develop self-confidence and influence people by public speaking.
If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button and click the bell icon to get more new videos.
Since 1931, over 500,000 people have come to learn how to speak in public using my example, and many of these students have written down why they signed up. What do they hope to gain from this course? The language used is usually somewhat different, but the purpose of their writing or their basic needs are mostly the same. It is truly amazing. One student wrote, "When I am called to speak, I become so shy and nervous that I cannot think clearly, and I cannot concentrate, and I cannot remember what I intend to say. I want to be self-confident, to control myself, not to be afraid of being embarrassed, to be able to use my mind well when speaking. I want my thoughts to be coherent and logical, and I want my words to be clear and convincing to the group, the business people, the members of the association, or the audience of any group." These are the confessions of thousands of people who are similar to the above. Let me tell you a true story. Many years ago, a man who will be called 13th Leo Young came to me in Philadelphia to take a course in public speaking. After a while of schooling, I was invited to lunch with an industrialist. This man was a middle-aged, hard-working man, a factory owner, a builder of various merits in temples and public places. As we were eating lunch together that day, he looked down at the table and said, "I have been invited many times to speak in public, but I can't do it. I feel very restless inside. My mind is full of emptiness, and that's why I've been avoiding it all my life. But now I have been appointed as the chairman of the board of directors of a high school, where I have to preside over the meeting. What should I say to be appropriate? And do you think someone my age can learn this way of speaking?" "What do I think, gent?" I replied. "Actually, it's not a matter of wasting my time. I know for sure that you can learn this way and succeed if you just practice and follow the instructions and lessons." They acted as if they didn't want to believe me and seemed to be giving me too much hope for success and being overly optimistic. They said in a low voice, "I thought you just wanted to show sympathy for me more than anyone else, so you tried to comfort me with these words." Finding a forest was just around the corner. After they graduated, we lost touch for a while. Then we met and had lunch together again at an industry meeting, and we sat in the same place where we had sat before. To remind them of our previous conversation, I asked him, "Did I really give them so much hope in the past?" Then he reached into his pocket and took out a notebook with a red cover and opened it to show me the program, which was written in order, including the dates he was to speak. Second Vice President. He said, "The ability to speak, the pleasure I received from these activities has enriched my service to many people. These ways of speaking are the most satisfying and proudest things in my life." Not long ago, there was a great arms reduction conference in Washington. As soon as he heard that the British Prime Minister was planning to attend the conference, the Baptists of Philadelphia sent a telegram inviting the British Prime Minister to come and give a speech to receive a great blessing that was to be held in the state. Gent told me that he had been chosen by all the Baptists in Philadelphia to be the public speaker for the British Prime Minister. This man sat at my table last year, and he asked me in part whether he could speak in public. Is it unusual for him to overcome all obstacles and develop his speaking ability so quickly? No. There are thousands and thousands of others who are in the same situation. I would like to mention another man who for many years had a doctor in Brooklyn named Corset. He spent his winters in Florida, near the training ground of the New England baseball team. As a big football fan, he often went to watch the practice. Soon he liked the team's pitcher and was invited to a party to honor the player, Fruit. The guests were invited to say a few words to the team's football player. After the meal, a long moment passed, suddenly without anyone having planned it in advance, like the sound of a house bomb. At that moment, the host announced, "Tonight we will have a doctor in attendance, so I would like to invite Dr. Corset to speak about the health of the baseball player." What had he prepared for his speech? Of course, he had prepared everything he could because he had studied health, hygiene, and how to treat patients for 30 years. If he sat down and talked in a chair, he could talk to anyone, left or right, all night long. But to stand up and talk in front of a small group of people, even if it was just one story, was a completely different story, and he was not skilled at it, which made his heart beat faster than usual, and there was a loud voice in his body. He had never spoken in front of such a crowd before in his life, and now all his knowledge and ideas had grown wings and flown away. What should he do? The people clapped their hands in anticipation, and everyone looked at Corset. Then he raised his head, which received even more applause, and showed that everyone wanted him to speak first. At that moment, a voice shouted, "Dr. Corset, speak! Speak now!" louder, indicating that they were eager to hear him speak more and more. Corset was in a very pitiful state, and he knew that if he stood up and spoke, he would definitely fail, because even if he said only 5-6 sentences, he would not be able to do it. So he decided to stand up and not say a word, just turn his back on his friends in the room and quietly walk out with a shocked and embarrassed face. There was no need to wonder why, when he returned to Brooklyn, he came to enroll in public speaking classes with me, because even though it was his first time, he did not want to be embarrassed and become a stone thrower the second time. He was a model student who made his teacher very happy. That is, he worked hard to learn, had an overwhelming will, and wanted to become a person capable of speaking. He prepared for speaking thoroughly and practiced with great determination and never missed a day. His studies were excellent, and he got high marks according to his hard work, which made him feel strange and prouder than his success in other things. Just after a few classes, his fear seemed to disappear, and he became a person with higher confidence. After a few months, he became a star speaker among the students and was invited to speak everywhere, making him more prominent and making more friends. A member of the New York Republican Party campaign committee came to hear Dr. Corset speak in town. Then he was invited to speak to attract the attention of the people in the town to get votes for the party. That politician would be shocked if he knew last year that Dr. Corset once walked out of a dining room in shame because he was afraid of the crowd waiting to hear him speak, that his tongue became stiff and he could not speak. It is not difficult to gain confidence, courage, and the ability to use his mind calmly and clearly while speaking to the public. Talent is not something that God gives to any person that makes them superior and better. Talent is an ability that we work hard to train, like playing sports. Everyone can develop the ability that is embedded in their own body to achieve success if they have the desire and effort. What are the mysterious reasons why we cannot use our minds well when we stand and speak in front of a small audience, when we sit and speak in this place? In fact, you will see that it is not true. When facing a crowd, you can use your mind better than usual, because the gathering of people is like a support and help you speak better. Many experts have said that the fact that so many listeners bother together is a driving force that helps accelerate the brain to work better, fresher, and wiser. Thoughts, ideas, perspectives that you never knew were your own, as Henry Watts said, come out fresh, new, hot. What they need to do is, do not keep delicious food for long. Quickly grasp the mastery and make it your own and work hard to practice. Try to practice often. However, if you follow the above steps carefully enough, you will gain confidence in yourself. Practice will help to eliminate any fear of being in front of an audience and will give you confidence and courage that will never fade. Do not think that your case is difficult to handle, because even the best speakers of each generation, if you look back at the initial stages before reaching this position, have all faced situations of trembling and fear without reason. William J. Bryan, a talented speaker, also admitted that trying to practice speaking in front of a crowd or a town at first made his legs tremble until they collided. When Mark Twain stood up to deliver his first speech, he felt as if his mouth was being squeezed tightly and his pulse was beating as fast as if he were trying to win a championship. General Grant, who captured the city of Vexillé, led a victory to a larger army than the world had ever seen. However, when he tried to speak in the town, he found that his nervous system was completely paralyzed. Jean-Jacques Jourdan, 1859 to 1914, one of France's most eloquent politicians, said that in his day he sat with his tongue stiff for more than a year before he could muster the courage to speak in Parliament for the first time. The first time I tried to speak in the town, I must tell you the truth, I was in a very miserable state. It was not a matter of speaking, but it made my tongue stiff, stuck to the roof of my mouth and throat, so that it was very difficult to speak a word, confessed Lloyd George. John Bright, a famous Englishman who fought in the War of Independence and the emancipation of the slaves, made his first speech in the United States, defending the cause of the United States, to a crowd of natives gathered in a schoolhouse. On his way to school, he felt so nervous that he would fail, that he would ask a friend to clap his hands for him to cheer him up whenever he felt a hint of nervousness. Charles Dryden, 1896 to 1891, the great Irish politician, was so nervous when he first began to speak in public that, according to his younger brother, he would often clench his fists and dig his nails into his palms until they bled. Disraeli said that he would rather lead his cavalry into battle than face Parliament for the first time. His first speech in Parliament was a complete failure, and so was Charles Princeton. In fact, many famous English speakers have been in such a miserable state when they first spoke. This has led to the belief in the present day that the beginning of a young speaker's speech in Parliament is not a measure of their success, so we should understand their feelings. Having taught and helped many aspiring speakers to become successful, I always smile when I see students start their first speech with a sense of fear and even stutter. Speaking in public requires a high level of responsibility and determination, even among only 10 or 20 people. Tension, fear, and excitement are bound to arise, but the speaker must learn to adjust to the right level, like a well-trained horse, so that he can easily pull the strings. Cicero, the immortal orator, said more than 2,000 years ago that the real value of public speaking depends on the different qualities of the speaker's nervousness. Speakers often experience this condition even when speaking on the radio. This condition is called microphone phobia. When Charlie Chaplin, Chalk, spoke on the radio, he would write out his speech in advance, even though he was used to speaking in front of countless audiences. In 1912, he traveled to the United States to perform a short play, A Night in a Music Hall, which he had also performed in England. However, when he entered the quiet sound room and was confronted by the radio speaker, he felt a pang in his stomach, not unlike the feeling of a transatlantic ocean liner when the ship is rocked by waves in February. James Waterwood, the famous film star and director, had a similar problem. He was a great talker on stage, but when he left the sound room after speaking to his audience, he was seen nervously wiping the sweat from his forehead. It is said that the first night on Broadway is easier than speaking on the radio. Some people also experience a constant nervousness before they start speaking, no matter how often they have spoken in public. But after a few minutes of standing up, this feeling disappears. Even Lincoln felt a moment of embarrassment before speaking in public. His lawyer, Hernandez, wrote, "While at first his tongue seemed stiff and he could not speak, it was very difficult to adjust himself to the surroundings, but he had to endure for a long time the shock that came over him. These two things made his throat doubly constricted. I have seen this often, and I have felt sorry for him in that condition, until when he began to speak, his voice began to tremble and was not pleasant to listen to. In addition, his body seemed stiff, his face pale, and his face was wrinkled. His posture was also strange, showing a sense of shock, as if everything was gathering around him. But these problems were only for a short time. After a while he returned to his calm, energetic, clear, and masterful state, and could speak fluently. You may have experienced a similar situation with Lincoln. To achieve good results through hard work and become a good speaker quickly, there are 4 essential things that must be met. Be determined to study hard and never give up. This is more important than you think. If you can see into the depths of your mind, thoughts, and heart, then He will surely know your deepest desires and can tell you how to study to learn quickly. But if your desires are not clear and weak, then your success in learning will also appear in the same shape, form, and form. The power of high determination is like a cat chasing a mouse, and there is nothing under the path of a white elephant that can make you fail. So awaken your enthusiasm and energy to get up and study on your own. Think about the benefits you will get. Think about how much more confidence and ability to speak to attract people in the city will be higher and more useful. Think about what benefits it will bring to you and how it should be useful to make money. What benefits does it have in society, such as helping you make more friends, building your influence higher, and helping you become a leader? Especially for leaders, it will help you move faster, almost better than any other method you have ever imagined or expected. There is no success that can be achieved so quickly in building a prosperous life and gaining such a good reception as the ability to speak to an audience. John C. McDecua. Philip D. Amor, after making millions of dollars, said, "If I could become a great speaker, it would be better than being rich." This is the dream of a highly educated and knowledgeable person. After the death of Andrew Canacey, a life plan was found, among other documents, for the time he was 35. In it, he determined that within 2 years he would organize his business to have an annual income of $50,000. Later, at the age of 35, he decided to leave business and attend the University of Akron until he finished his studies in public speaking. Imagine the satisfaction, the joy, the beauty, the power of this new ability. I have traveled to many parts of the world and have experienced many strange things. To put it simply, there is nothing that brings real and lasting satisfaction like standing up in front of a crowd and making them all bend to your will. It makes you strong and independent, and it inspires you to take the next step towards success. It will take you far, make you stand out from your peers, and give you a sense of inner power and an unforgettable thrill. A speaker once said, "For 2 minutes before I speak, I would rather be beaten than talk. But when I have 2 minutes left to finish talking, I would rather be shot than stop talking." Trying to concentrate on learning, some people are not motivated, passionate about learning, and stop halfway. So you always have to ask yourself, what does this subject mean to you? Until your desire begins to boil strongly and your determination to learn fiercely will help you to be a successful person until the end. Take 1 night a week to read the following sentence. I will make advancing as easy as possible and retreating as difficult as possible. When Julius Caesar sailed from Gaul with his army, crossed a narrow strait, and landed in what is now England, what should he do to secure victory for his army? He made the wisest decision. He ordered his army to camp on the slopes of the Tocqueville. When the soldiers looked down at the sea, about 200 feet below the strait, they saw a red fire destroying all the boats used to cross the narrow strait. The enemy was on land, and there was no means of communication left. All the vehicles used for retreat had been burned, so the only way was to attack. Caesar is a great man, a man of great stature, long remembered in this world. Why can't you train your mind like Caesar in times of war to overcome the cowardice that is present in the presence of your audience? 2. Know in advance what you are going to say. No matter who you are, when facing a large group of people, it is not a pleasant experience if they do not research, prepare what to say in advance, and do not know what they're going to say. They will be in a situation where they are the blind leading the blind. If you are speaking in such a situation, it is normal for them to feel nervous, shocked, and ashamed of their shortcomings that they have not paid attention to. Theodore Roosevelt wrote in his autobiography, "I was elected to the legislature in the fall of 1881. I felt that I was a very young man in that house, like all young men who were unskilled in the art of speaking. It was very difficult to teach myself to speak. I received many lessons from a simple old man and a fellow citizen who, without realizing it, quoted a gentleman in Wellington. It is not surprising that the gentleman may have borrowed the same advice from someone else. The advice was, 'Do not speak until you know exactly what you want to say and know exactly what it is, and when you have said it, sit down.' In fact, the old man should have told Roosevelt to help him overcome his fear, adding, 'It will help you to get rid of your nervousness if you do something more in front of your audience, if you do something that attracts attention, like writing a sentence on the blackboard. Showing and pointing out important points on a map or moving a table, opening a window, changing the place of books, stacks of papers, or other objects makes us active and lively, and what we do will make you feel close to your own home. In fact, learning the theory is easy, but putting it into practice is not easy. But if you have the opportunity, you should train it from the beginning to become a habit. It is like a baby learning to walk. They always hold on to a chair to support themselves. But after they learn to walk well, they don't like the chair anymore. 3. Show confidence. A famous American psychologist, Professor William James, wrote, "Actions seem to follow feelings, but in reality, actions and feelings occur simultaneously. Therefore, if you change the actions, which are directly under the control of the mind, you will also change the feelings, which are not directly under the control of the mind, but indirectly. When you change your thoughts, and over time, your feelings will also adapt to your thoughts. Therefore, if you lose your joy, the best way to make yourself happy again is to sit up straight like a happy person, express your behavior, and talk with beauty. If doing so still does not help you to be happy, nothing else will change your appearance. So, to have courage in yourself, be a brave person, using all your strength toward your goal. Courage will eventually control all our cowardice. Follow Professor James's advice to awaken your courage. When you face your audience, you must gather your emotions, your gestures, and your demeanor to be a brave and courageous person. Of course, you must adapt to this, because every role in the world requires skill. Otherwise, it will only be of little use. For example, if you know exactly what you have to say, when the opportunity arises, you should walk briskly and quickly to the podium and take a deep breath. Taking a deep breath in the first 3 seconds before facing the audience is to inhale oxygen to your lungs, helping you feel refreshed and more courageous. The Polish tenor singer Jean de Rest once said, "When you take a deep breath, it helps you to stand on confidence. Then fear disappears." In all ages and countries of the world, people have always valued courage. So no matter how fast your heart beats, you should step forward as a brave person. When you get to the podium, stand still, calm your mind, and show your enthusiasm for speaking here. Stand tall, look straight ahead, look into the eyes of the audience, and begin to speak with confidence, as if all the audience were your friends, your own, or your debtors. Act as if the group of people really owed you money and they all came to beg you to delay payment. Then you will feel better. Do not use your hands or pull the hem of your coat in a trembling state. For women, do not touch or rub the jewelry you wear on your body, and do not let your hands remain still or in a relaxed state. If necessary, make movements to dispel fear, such as folding your palms behind your back or interlacing your fingers. This way, your audience won't see your fear, or you might even be able to wiggle your toes. According to the rules of public speaking, you shouldn't stand behind large furniture. You can stand behind a table or chair with your hands on it, or hold a coin tightly in your hand. This is also a way to build up some courage for the first few times you speak. How did Theodore Roosevelt build his courage and self-confidence? Was he a natural risk-taker, or was he born with courage? The answer is no. In addition to being a sickly child and famous for that, I was very shy, very timid, and not very brave, so I had to train myself to be strong, tough, and certainly very hard, not only physically, but mentally and spiritually as well. Consider it fortunate that he agreed to tell us how he succeeded in changing himself. When I was a young man, I read a passage in Merriam's which has always fascinated me. In it, the author tells of a small British naval commander explaining to his men how to be self-controlled and fearless. In the early days of combat, almost everyone was terrified. The solution was to pretend to be strong, brave, fearless, and fearless. When done long enough, the pretense would become a reality. Thus, each man could overcome this cowardice by pretending to be brave. This is the theory I have applied. At first, I was afraid of everything, such as grizzly bears, horses, and gunfights. But by pretending to be fearless, I was no longer a coward. Most people would get the same results if they chose to do this, and you can do the same yourself. General Hook said, "In war, the best defense is to charge forward. So overcome your fears and face them head on. Only courage can fight and win against all odds." Imagine yourself as the sender of a telegram, and then you are sending it to the receiver. The receiver cares little about the sender, but wants the telegram and wants to know more about its contents. Make your mind and heart strong and concentrate on them with the satisfaction of the listener. Then speak what you have already decided to say. If you can do this, you will be one of the 10 best speakers in town and skilled in self-control.
4. Practice, practice, practice. The last point mentioned here is the most important. Even if you forget everything you have read, you must do this. It is the first or last way, and the way that never fails to build self-confidence. That is, practice speaking. In conclusion, all the previous studies, if briefly stated, only one important point remains. Practice, because it is a necessary thing that we cannot do without. Theodore Roosevelt gave advice that, "Dear fright, this disease refers to excessive nervous excitement, different from the type of coward. This condition occurs in those who speak in front of a public for the first time, as if they had met a deer for the first time or faced their first war. The most necessary thing for such people is not courage, but control of their emotions and brains. They can do this only if they train and practice repeatedly to become a habit to control themselves. They will make their nerves subject to all orders. These points are achieved through regular practice, a strong will, and hard training. For a person who is already fully capable, training will gradually increase their strength." Do you want to get rid of the cowardice that is in front of your audience? Professor Robinson wrote in his book, Building Strength, that cowardice is born of ignorance and uncertainty in the mind, or in other words, cowardice is born of lack of confidence. What are the causes of cowardice? Please answer that it is the result of not knowing how to do it well. And the reason for not knowing how to do it well is because of lack of skill.
If you build up your mastery, and that will encourage your cowardice to disappear like salt to water and wax to sun. It is a well-known fact that there is no other way to learn to swim than to go into the water. You've been reading this book for a long time. Why not try to put it together and then apply it to the world? Choose a topic to talk about. A good way is to take a story that you already know a little bit about, compile it into sentences, and speak for 3 minutes, and then practice speaking to yourself over and over again. Then, if possible, try to speak in front of a group of people who are similar in that regard, or speak in front of friends, trying to the best of your ability and physical strength. Summary of Principles, Chapter 1. 1. Thousands of students have written to me explaining why they need to learn how to speak in public, and what results do they expect from speaking. The main reason they give is that they need to overcome their fears, have a lively mind, and be able to speak confidently and well, whether they are standing on a platform with a small or large audience. 2. The ability to speak is not something difficult to train. On the other hand, it is not a talent that God gives to some people. It is an ability that can be developed, like playing sports. Everyone can develop the ability that is inherent in them to succeed if they have enough desire and will. 3. Many speakers can think and speak better in front of a crowd than in a conversation with one person. The gathering of many people becomes a driving force and a pressure force. If you follow the instructions in this book with certainty and with firm conviction, when the opportunity arises, you will become equally skilled. Then you will become a person who feels happy, refreshed, and skilled in public speaking. 4. Do not think that your case is unusual, because many speakers, when they first start speaking in public, face fear and almost collapse because they are excited by the audience. But later they become famous speakers. This has happened to many famous speakers. 5. No matter how many times you have spoken in Japanese, before you start speaking, you will inevitably feel nervous, but after a few seconds, the fear will disappear on its own. 6. To get the most out of this book and get the most out of it, follow these 4 points. A. Be determined to study hard and relentlessly. Think about the results that will come from your hard work. Awaken your enthusiasm to study these things. Think about how important they are to you financially, in your social life, in your influence, and in your promotion as a leader. Remember that how quickly your studies can progress depends on how much or little you desire. B. Just being prepared will not make you feel confident unless you already know what you are talking about. C. Acting as if you were confident. Professor William James suggested that to cultivate courage, we must act as if we were brave men, exerting all our strength upon those objects, and the result will be that our courage will overcome our cowardice. Teddy Roosevelt also said he could overcome his cowardice in the face of a grizzly bear, a fierce horse, and a gunfight, all by this means of strengthening courage. So you can overcome your cowardice in front of an audience by taking the same real advantage of the above psychology. D. Training is more important than anything else because cowardice comes from a lack of confidence, which stems from not knowing what you will do. And these problems come from a lack of mastery, so you need to build a strong mastery foundation first, then the cowardice in you will disappear.
Thank you for watching. See you next time.